Dobry den. Good morning. How's the conference been so far? Only 3 people like it. How's the conference been so far? Good. Boy, it's been a phenomenal couple of days, and I'm so excited today to be with you to talk about how you can be a Rockstar presenter in 5 steps. Who wants to be a Rockstar presenter? All right. So I'm going to take you through this journey in the next hour, sharing my own experiences, and once you walk away, making you feel good about being an amazing presenter. Now, before I get started, I want to get the pulse of everybody in this room. I want to do a quick survey. So take your phone out. What I want you to do is go to this website. Bring your phone out. Go to this website, Kahoot.it, and then put in that code. We're going to do a little survey here because I just want to make sure we're in the right session and we're going to talk about the right thing here. So go to this website, Kahoot.it. You can use your computer if it's easier. You don't have to use your phone. And then type in that PIN code. And once you type that in, it's going to ask for your name. And once everybody's in, I'm going to start the survey question. And we'll use this throughout the presentation to kind of get the feel of what y'all are thinking about, all right? So thank you. We've got a bunch of people signing up. I'll give it a few, maybe one more minute. Again, for those just walked in, with your computer, your phone, go to this website, put in the PIN code and your nickname, all right? Someone took your name? Come up with another name. I think you're called Bob, right? Okay. All right, so with that, I'm going to start my question. I have one question to get started with. Here you go. First question, what do you think a person's greatest fear is? Pick any of these 4. This is not a test. I just want to get a good pulse of what you think people's greatest fear is. All right? So if you just walked in, feel free to go to this website, Kahoot.it, put in that PIN code so you can participate in this poll. All right, so this is the answer. So y'all think that public speaking is everybody's greatest fear. And that's what I thought too. In a good way, actually, it's not. You see, in the recent survey, I can share the survey with you, friends. People's greatest fears, number 1, snakes and spiders. Seem like doesn't faze you. Heights is the second, and public speaking is only number 3, which is a good news because we've been dreading this thing, but apparently it's something that you shouldn't be scared of. And that's why we're here today. So as we go through the next hour, I'll walk you through the 5 practical steps that you can use regardless if you're in a meeting, in a big stage like this, doing a webinar, or doing in a more intimate setting around presentations and public speaking. Now, to introduce myself, for those of you not familiar, my name is Dux. Yes, that's my real name. As you may have imagined, I had a hard time growing up with that name. Got my ducks in a row now. It also works here, right? But it's been an amazing 18 years journey in this industry. I started my career as an assembler developer. Anybody knows assembler? For those that didn't raise their hands, you weren't born yet. And after I started working at Siemens, a small German company, as an assembler developer back in the early 90s, one day my boss came up to me and said, "Hey, Dux, I want to take you to this sales meeting, and you need to pitch your code that you've written." And I was a developer. I mean, I love working on code. I love working on computers. I hate talking to people. So my boss took me. I didn't have a choice. And let's just say, as a result of my presentation, the customer did not want to do anything with us. It was pretty bad. And I was thinking I can only respond 2 ways. Either be a bad presenter for the rest of my life, or I could do something about it and fix it. So I took the latter route. I went on this journey. I said, I don't know how to present. I can't speak well, but I want to be good at this. So I started my journey about 18 years ago. What did I do? as anybody would do to be the best of what they can be, go and watch YouTube. So I started watching YouTube of great speakers, from politicians to technologists to celebrities. And I found a pattern of things that are in common. And I started documenting it and practicing it, which I'll show you today. And throughout my journey, after being an assembler developer, I started my own consulting company. And this was when a technology called SharePoint, not ScarePoint. When SharePoint came about, I wrote one of the first books around SharePoint called SharePoint for Project Management. And at that time, I realized, boy, this whole public speaking presentation thing is important. Because I would go to meetings and meet new customers, try and sell my services. I would be at events like this pitching my book. But I continued to hone my skill. Fast forward to today, I serve as the Chief Marketing Officer of a software company called AvePoint. And I have the great honor and privilege to come to places like this and talk to you about our wonderful technology, but more importantly, share my experiences in the last 18 years in this career. So, to get the conversation started, the first question I asked myself, okay, if I want to be a good public speaker and presenter, why? Why should I care, right? Public speaking is essential, or effective public speaking is essential because of three reasons. Number one, when we present or when we speak, what we're trying to do is we're trying to persuade. All of us, we like it or not, we're selling change. Like, we're here today because I want to convince you to be a great speaker. I'm selling this idea that you can be a great speaker, and you have to change your ways to do that. Part of persuasion is you want to elicit curiosity and interest. I can sell stuff, but if you're not interested, or I don't make you interested, it doesn't matter. Why effective public speaking is essential, number two, is you want to motivate people. When you think about motivation, there needs to be a level of relationship that happens, right? You know, I still need to work on my relationship with some of the folks here. I met earlier a gentleman named Hiri. I think he moved his seat, Hiri. But I don't know how to pronounce his name correctly, right? So it's a constant work in progress. So building relationship is a work in progress, but that's what you do throughout your session. And that's how you motivate people. Part of the motivation also is you want to encourage people to learn, right? Which leads to the third point of why effective public speaking is essential. Our job is to inform. We need to share knowledge. We need to reinforce what people already know and make them better at it. And those are the three reasons why effective public speaking is essential. If you're not effective in presenting and speaking, then it's hard to achieve these three goals. And oftentimes, in order to get to these three goals, as a presenter, as a public speaker, we fail to realize that we wear 5 hats. You see, the roles of a presenter is not just to come up on stage and click on PowerPoint slides. We come up on stage because we serve and fulfill 5 important roles. Number one, you are presenting because you are a learning manager. Now, what does that mean? A learning manager means that you're responsible to think about what people will learn as they walk out of this session. Like, my responsibility is making sure that you learn these 5 steps. The second role of an effective presenter is you are the subject matter expert. You are the resource up on the stage because you know this stuff. So the next time you are invited to speak on something or present something, please, please, please don't start your presentation with, "I'm not a really good speaker. I apologize in advance." Right? Because once you say that, people just shut off. Like, why am I wasting my time up here? Right? You're the expert. That's why you're up there. That's why you're presenting. The third role that we fulfill as a presenter is we represent our companies, our organizations. So I'm here representing AvePoint. In some ways, I'm also representing Microsoft. So what does that mean? Essentially, I don't want to say things that my mother will be upset at. Right? I was trying to be funny with ScarePoint, but I really love SharePoint, all right? Just to be clear. The fourth role we fulfill as a presenter is we're a coach. Who coaches sports teams here for their kids or who coaches? Okay, coach. What's your name, sir? Martin. Martin, what do you coach? What sport do you coach?
Gymnastics and football.
Gymnastics and football. What a combination, right? What's your responsibility as a coach? Give me two.
Well, to teach them the sport.
To teach them the sport. Okay, what else?
I like to feel that my responsibility is to motivate them to like the sport as well.
To motivate them to like the sport as well. And liking the sport, does that mean you always want to say, you're really good, don't worry, it's okay, you don't have to try hard?
Not at all.
No. Being a coach is you want to motivate them, make them feel good, but you want them to learn, even if it means if it's hard. I'm originally from Manila, Philippines, and way back when, I was part of the Philippine Dragon Boat rowing team. Anybody familiar with Dragon Boat rowing? It's like this sport with 20 people and racing, right? My last competition, we lost to China, second place, by 0.2 of a second. Right? And I remember our coach, we would train 4 a.m. every day for like 6 months, 5 days a week, on Manila Bay before that world championship, and I hated my coach. He gave us a hard time, but at the same time, I loved the guy. He motivated me, gave me a lot of discipline, forced me to do things I didn't think I could do. That's what a coach should be. Every presenter, every public speaker is a coach. And lastly, to me, is the most important role. Every presenter and every public speaker should be a good host. Now, Dux, what do you mean by a host, right? Give me some examples. So, holiday season's coming up. Who's hosting a Christmas party? All right, sir, what's your name? Mario. So, Mario, let's say you invite me, wink, wink. I come to your house, I knock on your door. Hey, Mario, thank you for inviting me. You open the door. What's the first thing you're going to tell me?
What do you want to drink?
Dux, can I take your coat? Right? No?
No?
Oh, drink first. I like his priorities.
20 seconds.
All right, because it's cold, I want Jägermeister. So that's what a host would be, right? So you want to make people feel comfortable. I mean, all those four things are important, but to me, being a host is the critical part, because if people aren't comfortable in the room, they're not going to learn as much. Now, keeping these 5 roles in mind, and we'll go back to it, let's jump in on how you can be a rock star presenter in 5 steps. And the steps I'm going to share with you are very practical. And by the way, everything I'm talking about is being live tweeted right now. So I encourage you to follow me on Twitter, Meet Dux, if you have Twitter, and follow those hashtags. If you're wondering how I'm live tweeting, I'm wearing the next generation HoloLens 3. When I blink, it tweets. And let me walk you through these 5 steps. Step number 1. The first step to be a rock star presenter is you have to intentionally prepare for your presentation. And when I talk about intentionally preparing, you start from the beginning in developing a catchy abstract. Now, what do I mean by this? Oftentimes, when we prepare for a meeting or a presentation, we don't spend a lot of time on this, but to me, this is the most critical part, because this is where you will get people's interest and initial attention. For example, when I talk about developing a catchy abstract, the title should be short and relevant. And if possible, put some numbers there between 0 to 7. Let me explain. I could have called this presentation Best Practices in Public Speaking. Y'all with me? But I chose not to. I called it How to Be a Rock Star Presenter in 5 Steps. The content I'm going to present is the same, but big difference, right? Why? Because I want to put something that's practical, and second, that's enticing. Oh, I want to be a rock star presenter in only 5 steps? I can do that. You see, this is scientific. In our minds, we can only keep 0 to 7 things at one point in time. So mental note, if you want to put some kind of title or tips or tricks, No more than 7. I mean, how would you feel if I call this session 99 steps to be a Rockstar presenter? None of you would be here. Because you'd be like, I can't do that. How's he going to do it? Make it short and relevant. And then in your description, if people read the description, which not a lot of people do, that's why you got to get them in the title. But if they do, be specific with your description, include outcome, content, and audience. For example, so apart from these presentations, I do a lot of sessions on Microsoft Teams, SharePoint, Office 365. This is one of the recent presentations I did. So again, when you write a description, here's the formula, all right? What's the business outcome? Need to increase Microsoft Teams adoption? Always start with that with a question. Of course, everybody would say, yeah, I want to do that. Talk about what the session's about. In this session, you will learn proven techniques on how to inspire, motivate, and drive sustainable adoption beyond deployment. All right, that's cool. Who is this for? This session is designed for IT pros, change managers, business executives, decision makers, and whatnot. That's it. No need to be wordy and have a lot of explanation. Just talk about what the outcome is, session content is, and who it's for. So that's the first step in intentional preparation. Develop a catchy abstract. Second, for your preparation, as you start building your presentation, think about how attendees learn. We're all adult learners. Unfortunately, we don't learn like our children. I have 2 wonderful children. My son now is 14. My daughter is 9. But I'm amazed on how much they can absorb. Unfortunately, our brain is not a tape recorder. To put it in terms that you understand, our brain is like a relational database. We take new information and connect it with existing knowledge. We don't have an object-oriented database here. It's relational. Any DBAs in the house? Yeah. And the point here is when you put your presentation content together, you have to make it relatable. To prove my point, I want to do a quick exercise, all right? What I want you to do is this. If you're on a computer or on a phone, stop what you're doing. I'm going to show some words, and I'm going to show this for like 5 seconds, and I want you to memorize it, all right? Okay, so I'm going to show some words, and I want you to memorize it. Go. Okay, I'm going to stop, and be honest. I'm going to show those words again, and tell me how much you remember. How many remember all 8? Raise your hand, please. 7, 6, 5, 4. All right, I'm going to stop so I won't embarrass you. Let's try this again, friends. I'm going to show you a different set of words, okay? Same thing, 5 seconds, memorize as much as you can. I'm going to stop. Let's go back. See how much you remember. How many remembered 8? Okay, more people. 7, 6. Right? So you see my point, right? So when you put together a presentation, it's not just copying and pasting a bunch of text from the internet and putting in PowerPoint. It doesn't work that way. It should come together in a relatable fashion where you have main points and you connect the dots. It's all about connecting the dots. And you just stick to what's important. To me, less is more. It's not easier, it's actually harder. But if you want to do your best to be a public speaker, a great presenter, you really have to intentionally prepare all your content. Use repetition to reinforce learning, and the most important part is you put together your presentation, present the content in a structured story so people can relate. Once you're ready to put together your presentation, and most of us put together a presentation using PowerPoint, this is the framework I use to put together my PowerPoint presentation, all right? First and foremost, I always talk about the need. What's the need? Why is this important? I don't just jump right into the 5 steps as I started, right? Why is effective public speaking essential? Well, because we need to persuade, we need to motivate, we need to inform. That's the need. Why do we need to move to the cloud? Because it's cheaper. There's more services that we can take advantage of. It's more secure. It's scalable, right? So we have to present the need. Next, you talk about the solution. So how do we do this? I'm going to show you the 5 steps. And then once you show the solution, you always have to have a call to action, an assignment for people to go do. And then as you put together your slides, this is how I put together my slides. I always start with how much time do I have for my presentation? So in this case, 60 minutes. And then from there, I backtrack. In a slide, number 1, never, ever, ever, ever put full sentences unless it's a quote. Why is that? Why should we only put phrases and not sentences? Any ideas? Yes, sir. What's your name? Pascal. Why is that, Pascal?
They lose attendance.
Okay, so Pascal says they lose the attention. Because if you have full sentences and paragraph, it's human nature, you will read it. Y'all with me? But the responsibility now is on me as a speaker. I got to know my stuff. Because if you just look at this, it kind of makes sense, but it doesn't really make sense. Next, in a slide, 9 bullets max. Wait, Docs. Are you talking about like, big bullets, sub bullets? No, 9 bullets max total. Remember that rule, 0 to 7, 9, you're actually stretching it already. Minimum font size, 18 points, minimum. And don't go and play that game highlighting everything and making it 9 so it will fit. I know who you are. If it doesn't fit, it shouldn't go in there. And then the most important one slide is worth 2 to 3 minutes. What do you mean? So in a presentation like this, where there's no technical demos, the value of a slide to me is 2 minutes, any content, which means that in an hour-long session, I can have about 30 slides of content. Y'all with me? If I have demos, I can only have about 20 slides. This is hard, docs. I'm used to like 99 slides. But guess what happens to 99 slides? The speaker is 50 minutes in, and he's only on slide 10. And then what happens? Oh, I got 10 minutes left. How does that make you feel? Rushed, right? The speaker did not prepare. I'm not saying this is the only formula, but this formula has worked for me in the last 18 years. And the reason why I am a stickler on this is based on this research, friends. I just tweeted the research. So let's say you're doing an hour-long presentation and you maxed everything out with demos, right? 9 bullet points per slide, 20 slides an hour. You are conveying 180 points. Based on research, in 24 hours, people that listen to that presentation will only remember half of the presentation. 48 hours later, people only remember a fourth of the presentation. Our long-term memory, we will only remember 11%. This is proven by science for adult learners. So of those 180 points, people will only remember about 20 points? Yes. When I learned about this, it just changed how I thought about presentation. The question is, which 20 points you want people to remember? What I don't want to happen is he remembers different 20 points versus her versus him. Y'all with me? I want to make sure everybody remembers the most important 20 points. Is this helpful so far, friends? All right. Now, the last part, as you prepare your presentation, we talked about making sure it's relatable in a structured story. We talked about developing a catchy abstract and title. We said make sure you have main points and have some kind of structure when you build your PowerPoint. The content itself should address 3 major learning styles. Now, what do we mean by this? The first mode of learning is what's called visual learning. It's things that people see, like the video, the PowerPoint, the pictures. Almost all of us are visual learners, which is great. The second learning style or learning mode is what's called auditory learning. Auditory learning is something that comes out of the speaker's mouth. Typically, it's something you describe or something you walk through in a process. So, for example, how do you migrate to Office 365? Step 1, you have to assess and discover the data that you have. Step 2, you got to get rid of redundant, obsolete, trivial data because you don't want to move junk. Step 3, you classify and tag your data. Y'all with me? That's auditory. All of us are pretty good with putting content in place for visual and auditory learning, but we suck in kinesthetic learning. What's kinesthetic learning? Kinesthetic learning is tapping into people's emotions, and guess what? This is the most effective way to teach and the most effective way for people to learn. How do I do that, docs? This is where you share personal experiences and stories. Later this afternoon, there's a keynote around storytelling. I urge everyone to attend that. Miri will walk you through why storytelling is critical, especially in a lot of the work we do. You have to build this in your presentation. So that's step 1. To be a Rockstar presenter, intentional preparation is critical. Number 2, once you're ready, you want to go present, you have to have a proactive opening. You don't just show up and start presenting. You have to set up the scene as best you can, practice, as they say, practice makes perfect, right? Or practice makes progress. My kids keep repeating me. It's like, nobody's perfect. Practice makes progress. That's what they tell me. Be at the venue or the room or the webinar 45 minutes prior. And lastly, make sure the room is set up. I don't know how you feel about this, but oftentimes when I walk into a presentation and I see the presenter still sweating, trying to figure out the adapters and stuff not working, it doesn't make me feel confident. Right? And as you're set up, right, people start coming in, and again, you could do this online as well. You welcome people. I don't know if you notice, and I do this all the time. Before my presentation, I walk around and say hi and say, hey, my name is Tox. Hi, Jean-Luc, welcome. Paul, welcome. Hiri, welcome. Miri, hello. It does 2 things. Number 1, you're playing the role of a host, right? It's unfortunate I can't offer you drinks. I would if I could. So it makes people feel comfortable. But second, here's a little secret. You ready? It makes me less nervous. Every presentation I do, I get so nervous. But what I do is I go and meet people, because when I'm on stage, I will look at that person, because in my mind, I already know that person. It anchors me and makes me feel less nervous. Oh, I talked to Iri earlier. I talked to Paul earlier. I talked to Jean-Luc earlier. I'm just going to look at him, so it calms my nerves. It works for me. Once you get people settled, right? You're ready to start. Your initial pitch matters. And this is important. Listen, research has found that in a typical presentation, if you walk in and you don't know the presenter, the audience will only give the presenter 45 seconds to make a good impression. After about 45 seconds, if the presenter does not make a good impression, the person may still be there for the whole session, but they're going to check out. In 45 minutes, they're going to consider, is this person worth listening to or not? So how do I do that? How do I make a good impression? Number one, what's your opening hook? What I mean by opening hook, you always start with a trivia, with a question. Like I start earlier, I say, hey, welcome everybody, grab your phone, let's do this quick survey. You all thought public speaking was the biggest fear? No, spiders was, right? Oh, that's cool. And second, please minimize your verbal resume. You still have to introduce yourself. Hey, my name is Dux. I'm the CMO of AppPoint. I've been doing this in the last 18 years. Full stop. Don't go through your life story. Yeah, I'm an MVP, RD, MBA, Run DMC. Because if you're really the bomb, people will see it through the presentation. You don't need. Just set an initial level set to establish your expertise. That's it. And then set realistic expectations. Notice when we got started, friends, I keep saying, look, I'm going to show you 5 steps. Set the expectation, right? So as you open, right, you're ready to go. So you want to make sure you deliver your presentation in an interactive format. And interactivity can come in different forms, shapes, and sizes. You know, one time I was doing a presentation, and somehow in the middle of the presentation, actually before my presentation, I got wind of this bad news. So I don't know if you remember this. The worst hurricane that was recorded in history hit the Philippines about 5 years ago. This hurricane typhoon was called Typhoon Haiyan, and it was so bad it hit one of the islands. Almost everybody died. Right? I actually knew a family friend that their family died. So when this happened, the U.S. Naval out of Pacific Command in Hawaii sent a fleet to do rescue and recovery efforts, about 5,000 U.S. soldiers. And what's kind of made me feel better about the situation is they used technology to save survivors. So a lot of soldiers went down. They were using SharePoint. So the ship had SharePoint. And the soldiers on their mobile devices and tablets was able to pull up data, put names, who survived, and the supplies that they need, all that. So they used technology to collaborate. And it's technology I worked in, right? And what's pretty cool about this story, because as I was about to present, I shared the story with the audience, because this customer as well used one of our technology to replicate the data from the ship to their headquarters in Hawaii. And when I think about this, right, this is a critical part of interactive delivery. That's what we mean by storytelling. When you tell stories, obviously you don't make up stories. It has to be authentic. I could have pitched our software. I can say, hey, we have this great replication software. Check this out. But I chose to talk about something that's real and something that's relevant. So that's what I urge you to do when you want to share stories. Remember, kinesthetic learning is the most effective way to learn. And when you tell stories, there's really 4 C's to your storytelling. Number 1, you have to set the context of the story. What was the background? What was the pain point, right? The more relatable the story is, the better. Relatable to you, relatable to the audience. Once you set up the context, you describe the pain points. The pain points was, they didn't know how to collect information of survivors. And then you have to talk about the climax. What did they do? They used SharePoint, right? To collaborate and store critical information. And they used part of our technology. And then conclusion, showcase best practices. How did they do replication? Storytelling doesn't have to be this long-winded, crazy setup example. It has to be real, and it doesn't have to be perfect. What's important with storytelling is you share what you've learned from it and how people can avoid those challenges. Another way to deliver interactively is to use analogies. I love using analogies. For me, the best way for me to learn is through analogies. Remember, the way our brain works is we relate information. So, for example, after being a assembler programmer, I started my own consulting company. I coded in .NET. Or not even .NET. I first coded in C++, I did Java, I did C#, and when .NET came out, I started doing .NET and ASP.NET. So one day, I was going to pitch to a customer why ASP.NET is better than your Perl or CGI or open source solutions. Y'all with me? But the problem is, the person I'm pitching to is not technical. The person I'm pitching to is CFO, because he's the person who's going to write the check. Y'all familiar with ASP.NET? Folks familiar with .NET? So I need to explain the value of .NET. So instead of jumping into the tech, I use food. So I said, hey, Miss CFO, every Thanksgiving, I used to go down to Atlanta, because today I live in Washington, D.C. I used to go down to Atlanta, Georgia, to visit with my aunt and her family, because my aunt is the best cook. And I would always go there by 10 in the morning because she would start preparing and cooking. And one of the things she makes that I really love is chicken parmigiano. So I would watch her prepare. We would drink wine. She would make the food, put it in the oven, and I wait and long for my chicken parmesan. So once she's done, I always be the first person to taste this chicken parmesan. She would bring it out hot. You smell the cheese, and I would take my first bite. Bellissimo. But then, for some reason, my cousin, his sense of smell is pretty strong. As soon as that thing came out, he would run down and have a bite as well. Question. Did my cousin have to sit and wait as long as I did? No. He just came and enjoyed the delicious chicken parm right after I did. Well, that's what ASP.NET does. What? Check this out. When you write your ASP.NET application, the first time it loads, it needs to compile. So it takes a little longer, but once it compiles and the web page shows up, guess what? The next request, that thing is pretty fast. You can keep eating that chicken parmesan. It works. He signed the check, or she signed the check. And when you use analogies, for me, I always use food because no one will get offended by food. Just don't use onions. Apparently, a lot of people don't like onions. Okay. To deliver interactively, a couple of other tips here. Minimize speech hiccups. Now, what do we mean by speech hiccups? It's like, it's okay to say that a couple of times, but if people start playing drinking games, it's a problem. Why do you think people do that? It's like, Why do you think people do that? Yes, sir.
They're thinking about what to say.
They're thinking about what to say. Number one, that's why you have to prepare. But if you do need to think about what to say, guess what? Pausing is okay. The best person who does this is James Earl Jones, a.k.a. Darth Vader. I watched he's a great speaker. I watched one of his presentations. He walked to a stage, like room full of people, and he walked up so quiet. He looked at everyone, and he said, "Good morning." And then paused, and everybody clapped. Because he had that Darth Vader voice, I guess. But pausing is okay. The other tip I have is drive interaction 8 to 10 minutes. Unfortunately, in this day and age, our attention span is so short. Research has found that we can only focus 8 minutes max. So what does that mean? The presenter in that time period should switch up what he or she would do. So let's say within 8 minutes, I walk down, or I do a demo, or I ask a question. Y'all with me? Everything you do up here on stage is designed to be interactive. We talked about 3 steps already on how to be a rockstar presenter. Number 1, intentionally prepare. Number 2, you have to have a proactive opening. Number 3, you have to drive interaction, right? You have to have an interactive delivery. Number 4, as a part of that interaction, we facilitate engagement. This is the part where how do you change it up every 8 to 10 minutes? Couple examples. Interact with the audience. It's okay. And you could do this multiple ways. And I'll show you a very effective and practical way that anybody can do in a second. But the most effective way is asking questions. In fact, we all know that you will remember only 11% of what I talk about today. So what I'm being intentional here is I reinforce what you need to learn, that 11%, by repeating stuff. I don't know if you've observed, I keep saying, okay, what have we learned so far? Step 1, step 2, step 3. But using questions is a great tool to reinforce learning, and I'll walk you through this in a second. Next, you have to do learning activities, just like what I did earlier. I told you, hey gang, memorize all these words and see how much you remember. All right? Those are learning activities. Or do quizzes. Or use tools like Kahoot. Kahoot is an awesome tool. You could do this online as well. Lastly, obviously we're familiar with this, doing demos. I love doing demos, but here's something that I learned today. Regardless if it's a big presentation like this or in a customer meeting, I record my demos. Nothing wrong with that. I record my demos for a couple reasons. A lot of the demos I show relies on the internet. So if connectivity is bad, I can't just be fumbling around trying to make the demo work. I have recorded demos, but I don't have audio on it. As the demo is playing, I just talk through it. Now, if the person has a question that's not part of the recorded demo, I still have my live environment so I can show what the person's asking about. Now, let's go back to questions. So I'm going to show you how you ask questions in an effective way. First of all, there are different types of questions you can ask. First, you have questions like open-ended questions. What open-ended question means, there's no right or wrong answers. The purpose of open-ended question is you want to drive interaction. So for example, who in this room are from Czech Republic? Raise your right hand, please. Okay. Who in this room are from Sweden? All right. So that's open-ended. No right or wrong, right? But you want to drive interaction. The other type of questioning is what's called close-ended question. In close-ended question, there's a right answer. And the purpose of close-ended question is 2 things. Number 1, you want to find out what the answer is. And number 2, you want to use it to reinforce learning. 3 ways to ask or direct the questions. The first way is what's called rhetorical question. Rhetorical means is you're going to ask a question that you're going to answer yourself. Hey, Dux, what's those 4 steps again? Oh, yeah, the 4 steps to be a rockstar presenter: intentional preparation, proactive opening, interactive delivery, and facilitate engagement. And I do that to reinforce learning, to repeat. So I make sure you remember this as a part of the 11%. Oftentimes, when I do rhetorical question, I would always put myself in the third person. Hey, Dux, so I may sound crazy, but it's cool. Like I'm talking to myself. But it's a great way to reinforce learning. Second, there's a group type of question. Group questions are directed for a specific group. People on the right side of the room, people on the left side of the room, people that are IT pros, people that are dev, people that are decision makers. So ask a specific group, right? Lastly, you have what's called targeted question. Targeted question, you will single out somebody This could be a major success or an epic fail. So I'm going to walk you through on how could this be a major success, right? How do you target questions? The biggest mistake oftentimes is when you do targeted question, you call the person first, hoping that he or she would know the answer. Don't do that, okay? What you do if you want a target question is something like this. You first ask the question, what's the latest version of SharePoint on premises? So I asked the question, right? What's the latest version of SharePoint on premises? And then what you do is you pause, and then you look around the room. If you find people bowing their heads, don't look at me, don't look at me, don't call me. Don't call those people. But if you find that person still looking at you, there's a higher likelihood that that person knows the answer. All right, so let's try it. What's the latest version of SharePoint on premises? So he's still looking at me, right? So I'm going to call on him. What's your name, sir? Baku? Marku. Marku, what's the latest version of SharePoint on premises? 2019. Marku says SharePoint 2019, and that is correct. Let's give Marku a big round of applause. Right? It works. Now, here and there, maybe a miss. I did this one time, another session, and the answer was totally wrong. I'm like, why are you looking at me? But most of the time it works. So that's how you ask your question. Another way to facilitate engagement is exploit social tools. This works in a big venue like this, in a public setting. I use a lot of social tools to my advantage. So for example, when I was telling you earlier I was live tweeting, I wasn't kidding. What I've done actually, I scheduled all my tweets based on timing as to when I'm going to say something and the tweet is going out. If you don't believe me, watch my Twitter account right now. All right? Second, the beauty with using social is for people not in this room, they could be a part of the engagement. So I'm sure people on social media right now that may be not here or not attending this, they see my tweets, they're responding to it, they're tagging to it. And then once I'm done with this session, I'll do a wrap-up post on LinkedIn. Because, again, that's where I can share my resources, the recording, and people can comment, so I can keep that engagement going. Very doable. What I encourage you is once we're done, if you're not on Twitter, that's okay. Follow me on LinkedIn and just watch what I post on LinkedIn. I'm very intentional on what I post on social, and my goal is whatever I post, I want to make sure people get a lot out of it. People will learn. People will be informed. I can persuade people, right? Step 5. So we've gone through the 4 steps: intentional preparation, proactive opening, interactive delivery, facilitate engagement. Step 5, you have to end with a bang. You have to close and motivate people. Formal closure is important. That's why you don't want to rush through the presentation, making folks, as they walk away, not feel good about the session. You want to do a call to action. And you want to put together and call and ask for evaluation. What do you guys think? What does everybody think of the session? Not only is it beneficial to the audience, it's beneficial to the speaker. So next time, if the speaker needs to present the same thing, they can improve upon their presentation. Connect beyond the session. I always show my contact information. If you all have any question, here's my contact info. Here's the link to the presentation. Come by and see me at the booth. Hit me up on LinkedIn. We are in a very connected world, right? There's no reason why we only meet here one time and don't engage ever again. As a part of your responsibility as a presenter, remember, you're the coach, you're the learning manager. You want to make sure people get the most out of your session. Here's what I want to do. I want to do a short quiz, and let's make a game out of it and see how much you've learned from this session, okay? So similarly, I'm going to launch another Kahoot. So get your phones ready and get your computer ready. This is like 4 or 5 questions, just a recap of. Okay, so go to kahoot.it, put in that PIN code, and put in your name. Go. We'll make this a contest. I'll actually score you, and whoever scores the highest, there's a prize. All right, jump on this Kahoot. For those that did not do this earlier, go to your phone, open up a browser or your computer. I'm going to do a short quiz on how much you've learned throughout this session. Okay, so we've got a lot of good friends jumping on. All right, let's give it a few more seconds. All right, I'm going to get this going. So if you're still doing this, you should see the PIN code at the bottom. So 8 questions. Are you ready? All right, let's do this. First question. Why is effective public speaking essential? Pick what you think the best answer is. All right, I'll give you about 30 seconds. Why is public speaking essential? If you haven't signed up yet, go to kahoot.it and go put in the PIN code. So we see a bunch of people answering. All right, 10 seconds. Yep, and then 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, it's essential because we need to persuade, motivate, and inform. All right, 244 people got it right. Awesome. Next. By the way, it'll keep track of your score. Each question has a score. Next question. Tom's on the lead. All right. Or a bunch of people's on the lead. We learn by incorporating new information with existing knowledge. True or false? We talked about adult learning, right? How do we learn? We learn by incorporating new information with existing knowledge. True or false? All right. The answer is true. All of you got it. All right, next. Number 3, how much of the presentation will we remember in our long-term memory? 50%, 25%, 11%, 40%. Just a side note to you, I use this tool a lot. It's free, and there's paid versions as well. But it's great for learning or even webinars or even in sessions like this. So the answer is 11%. Oh, only 230 got it right. Okay, moving along. Looks like Tom's in the lead next. Number 4, as a presenter, the most important role is being a good host, learning manager, coach, subject matter expert. As a presenter, the most important role is being a good host, learning manager, coach, subject matter expert. And let's see who got it right. Oh, 158. Host is the most important role of being a good presenter. Tom's in the lead. All right. Home stretch. What's the most effective way to learn? Visual, auditory, kinesthetic, none of the above. Right, so I talked about earlier, as we prepare a presentation, we have to make sure that our content would deliver these 3 types of learning. But the most effective one is kinesthetic learning, all right? So I encourage you to join Miri's session later on storytelling. Where's Tom, by the way? Tom, can you raise your hand? All right. There you go. Are you sure you're Tom? Okay. All right. Number 6, how often should you drive interaction in your presentation? 2 to 4 minutes, 15 to 17 minutes, 5 to 7 minutes, 8 to 10 minutes. How often should you drive interaction, be it through a slide, demo, question, learning activities like this, quizzes, polling? And the answer is, people are still answering, 8 to 10 minutes, all right? You know, this helps me also figure out who's paying attention or not. Number 7, where did ducks grow up? Washington, D.C., New York City, Shanghai, Manila. All right, so a couple you haven't answered it. Where did I grow up? I put this question to be a tiebreaker just in case we have people both on leading here. I grew up in Manila, Philippines, as I shared earlier. All right, last one. What do you think of this presentation? I didn't learn anything. I'm excited. I love my colleague to watch this. Best session ever. All right, so thank you. So looks like our winner is Tom. And here, where's Tom? Tom, can you stand up, please? Let's give Tom a big round of applause. There you go. You're welcome. That's why I told you sit in front, right? You sit in front, you pay attention. So, we talked about the 5 steps, and what do you think? Is this something that's practical that you can do? Raise your hands if you think it's practical, all right? Who's ready to take these 5 steps? Raise your hand, please. All right, raise your hand. If you raise your hand, stand up. I want to show you these 5 steps, so you'll definitely remember it. Stand up. Okay, so I'm going to show you what these 5 steps look like, and then I'll teach you, all right? So this is 5 steps on how to be a Rockstar presenter. All right? So, I'm going to hit pause right here. I'm going to show you the steps. I had to record this before I came here with my kids. So 5 steps. So what I want you to do, friends, is everyone face right there. Face your right. Face your right. All right, we're all, okay, and still look at me. Step 1 is what? Intentional preparation. So step 1 with your right hand. This is intentional preparation. Step 1, all right? Step 2, what I need you to do is your right hand, right? And just kick at the same time with your right foot. Right hand, right foot kicking, that's step 2. That's proactive opening. You got it? Step 3, both hands, you just swing it like this. Do it 8 times, right? 1, 2, actually 4, 3, 4. That's step 3, which is interactive delivery. Step 4, facilitate engagement, is you do your swinging, but then with your kicking as well, right? So step 4, okay? All right, good? That's facilitate engagement. Step 5, motivational closing. You're going to combine all the steps and then hop, okay? So you do this. Watch me, and then you can do it. So it's this, and then hop. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. You got it? All right, let's practice. All right. That's motivational closing. All right, let's do it again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, you ready? All right, let's do this. Wait. Let's do this. All right, very good. Ready? 2. Come on. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1. All right, you all have been great. Thank you so much. Now you're all rock stars. So here's my contact info. Take a picture. The recording is up on LinkedIn. That URL is a recording of a session that I did previously, but similar to this. Jump on it, comment on it, connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, enjoy the rest of ESPC, and come and see me. I'm at the AvePoint booth. Would love to meet you. Thank you again.